Have you ever wondered how to turn craft paint into airbrush paint? It's actually quite simple to do, but unfortunately time-consuming. If you don't mind the work, you can make yourself some pretty awesome airbrush paint that costs next to nothing. Hi everyone, I am Poto-chan and you are watching Poto Paint.
Welcome to Poto Paint.
Making airbrush paints from craft paints is a simple process of mixing the right ingredients. However, the time-consuming element of this process is the equipment preparation. The first thing you need is the containers, these little beauties, the drop bottles. And because I'm going to be mixing all 78 colors, I need to buy 100 bottles. The most cost-effective place to get these is Temu. Unfortunately, I did the usual thing and bought the 10 milliliter size. The 10 milliliter size does serve its purpose, but in hindsight, because I like airbrushing more than using a paintbrush, I should have bought the 30 milliliter variety. You're looking at the equivalent of $12 Australian for 100 pieces of the 10 milliliter bottles. Or if you prefer volume, about $37 Australian for 200 pieces of the 30 milliliter variety. I ended up getting both because reasons.
Preparing the bottles is quite time-consuming, taking the better part of an hour to get assembled. First the nozzles, then the caps, making sure to twist them off first.
I forgot this step, making my life that much more painful. The next time-consuming step is the labels. Cutting them up, peeling them off, and sticking them on can feel like a lifetime of work. But as long as you think of it as a labor of love, you'll be right, mate. When making your airbrush paints, you need your very own homemade paint thinner, some glycerin, and a 20 milliliter syringe. However, again, another tedious step is removing the caps and nozzles before doing anything else. This took me about 15 minutes to complete. The next thing I did was add 1 drop of glycerin to each bottle. Why glycerin, you ask? It acts as a flow retarder for the mixture and allows smoother flow through the airbrush. Don't forget to put your steel balls into the bottles. We use these for mixing the paints. I almost forgot to do it for mine. Because I had some paint thinner left here, I just started filling the bottles with about 8.5 milliliters of paint thinner. But first, let's break it down so you can make your own homemade paint thinner. What you need is the following: 2.5 parts 75% alcohol, 1.5 parts distilled water, and 1 part wood glue. The alcohol is for faster drying time. It also thins the paints better. The water is to prevent the glue from becoming a gel. You do not want this kind of mess. And you can't really fix it by just adding water. The wood glue is the paint binding agent. The best way to mix this is mixing the distilled water and glue first and the ethanol last. Or you can mix the ethanol and water first and the glue last, as long as the 75% ethanol doesn't touch the PVA glue. By diluting the ethanol further down to about 47%, gelation of the PVA doesn't happen. The other important reason why ethanol works in this cocktail is because ethanol helps the PVA solidify faster, helping with film formation. This mixture is also used in industrial adhesives and coatings, but it doesn't take effect until the ethanol and water evaporate. Yeah, I did my homework on this one. So here I'm adding 150 milliliters of water first, and then the PVA. The key here is that I left a little bit of water in the beaker so that the PVA will not stick to the sides, and I can get the exact amount into the mix. The other thing I have to do is recycle the water already added and use the mini whisk to properly dissolve the PVA. Because I am making 500 milliliters of paint thinner, I'm adding 100 milliliters of PVA. Now it's time for the ethanol. Here I am adding 250 milliliters of 75% ethanol to make 47% ethanol in my 500 milliliter cocktail. And now we can finally start to prepare out airbrush paints. I'll be using my 20 milliliter syringe to add about 8.5 milliliters of paint thinner to each bottle. Now that this is complete, we can start adding the paint. But don't forget to put the caps back on the bottles to prevent evaporation of the ethanol. To prepare the paints, I will use 5 milliliter syringes for each paint. What you want to do is collect 2 milliliters of the paint thinner in the syringe, then draw 1 milliliter of paint. This way, the paint is easier to transfer into the bottles. Here, I'm using the syringe to mix the paint thoroughly into the paint thinner. Once that is done, I have to do that 77 more times, and it's all finished. Now you can use your paints in your airbrush and paint to your heart's content. One last thing before I leave you. Your airbrush paints will delaminate. This means the heavier particles will sink to the bottom. It's just a natural thing for craft paints to do. The paint thinner will do the same because the PVA has a higher density. Remember that little steel ball we added? Just shake it up and mix the paints. Then you'll be ready to go. Here are just some of the things I have airbrushed with my paints. Right now I'm focusing more on terrain than anything else.
If you made it this far, thank you so much staying tuned until the end. Keep creating and keep painting to bring your visions to life, one layer at a time. See you in the next one.